I'm Barbara, and my mom was barely more than a kid herself when she had me, just 19 years old. She'd married my dad right after graduating high school, and I came along a year later. I remember how people would always mistake us for sisters when I was growing up, something that made Mom beam with pride every single time. I'd watch her get ready every morning, fascinated by her dedication to appearance. Even when money was tight, she never skipped her beauty routine. My dad would sometimes complain about the cost of her products, but Mom would just roll her eyes and say, "You married a beautiful woman, didn't you? Beauty takes maintenance." Everything seemed normal enough until I turned 10. That's when the fighting started, or maybe that's just when I started noticing it. The arguments would begin after I went to bed, but their voices would carry through our thin walls. It went on like this for months until one day, Dad just didn't come home. Mom sat me down on our beige couch, the one with the little wine stain that she'd tried so hard to hide with a throw pillow, and told me they were getting divorced. "But why?" I asked, my voice small and scared. "Sometimes grown-ups just can't live together anymore, honey," she said, but her eyes were already distant, like she was planning her next move. "You'll stay with me, and everything will be fine. You'll see." That's when the parade of uncles started. Mom would drop me off at Aunt Sarah's house more and more frequently, always with the same excuse, "Mommy needs some adult time, sweetie." "You understand, right?" I didn't understand, not really, but I nodded anyway. Aunt Sarah would try to make these visits fun, baking cookies with me or helping with my homework, but I wasn't stupid. I knew Mom was meeting men, trying to find my new daddy, as she'd sometimes say after a few glasses of wine. The first serious boyfriend lasted 3 months, before he discovered Mom had a daughter. I remember overhearing the fight through my bedroom wall. "You've been lying to me this whole time," he shouted. "A kid? Really, Sandra?" "I was going to tell you," Mom pleaded. "I just needed to find the right time." "The right time was 3 months ago," he said, and then I heard the door slam. That night, Mom came into my room and hugged me tight. "It's just you and me against the world, baby," she whispered, but somehow, even at that young age, I knew that wasn't quite true. It wasn't us against the world, it was Mom against getting older, against being alone, against accepting that life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned. The revolving door of Mom's boyfriends continued until I was 16. That's when everything changed. She met Robert. He was different from the start. I still remember the day she told him about me, expecting the usual reaction. We were all at a restaurant, and Mom was nervously playing with her napkin. "Robert, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice shaking. "I have a daughter. Barbara is 16. I held my breath, waiting for him to make some excuse and leave. Instead, he broke into a genuine smile and reached across the table to shake my hand. "I'd been wondering when I'd get to meet you," he said warmly. "Your mom's phone background is a picture of you two together." That was the first surprise. Mom hadn't deleted all traces of me from her phone this time. The second surprise was how natural everything felt after that. Robert didn't try too hard to be my dad or pretend we were instantly family. He just treated me like a person. "Hey Barbara, want to help me fix up the old Mustang in the garage?" he'd ask, or "What do you think about these paint colors for the living room?" 6 months later, they got married. It was a small ceremony, but it felt right. For the first time in years, I felt like we might actually be a normal family. Before I even turned 17, Mom announced she was pregnant. Emma came along just a few months after my 17th birthday, and Lucy followed almost exactly a year later. When I graduated high school, Dad came through with his promise to pay for my college tuition. "You earned this, kiddo," he told me as we looked through university brochures. "Pick wherever you want to go." I chose State University, 3 hours away. By then, Emma was 2 and Lucy had just turned 1. Robert was an amazing father to them both. The first year of college was a whirlwind of new experiences, but I came home regularly to visit. That's when things started to shift. Every single weekend I visited, without fail, Mom and Robert would have plans. "Barbara, honey, you don't mind watching the girls, right? Mom would say, already putting on her earrings. We haven't had a date night in ages, and you know how exhausting two little ones can be. But Mom, I was hoping to catch up with Ashley and Kim while I'm home, I'd say. We were planning to see a movie. Oh, you can do that next time. The girls had been so excited to see their big sister. You wouldn't want to disappoint them, would you? She'd give me that look, the one that made me feel guilty for even thinking about my own plans. Robert would look apologetic, but wouldn't say anything. So there I'd be, weekend after weekend, making baby formula, changing endless diapers, and trying to keep two toddlers entertained. Emma was in her terrible twos, throwing tantrums at the drop of a hat, while Lucy was just learning to walk and needed constant supervision to prevent her from bumping into everything. I love my sisters, I really do. But I was 19, juggling a full course load, and my weekends at home had become exhausting babysitting shifts. Between the midnight feedings, the diaper changes, and the constant vigilance needed to keep two toddlers safe, I was more tired going back to campus than when I arrived. I sat down with Mom and Robert one Sunday evening after putting the girls to bed. I need to talk to you both, I said. I love Emma and Lucy, but I can't keep being the default babysitter every time I come home. Mom's face immediately darkened. What do you mean? They're your sisters. Don't you want to spend time with them? Of course I do, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But I'm also a college student. I need some time to see my friends, to rest. Every weekend I come home, I leave more exhausted than when I arrived. Robert nodded thoughtfully. She has a point, Sandra. Barbara is still young. She should be able to enjoy her college years. We could hire a babysitter for our date nights, he continued, placing a hand on Mom's arm. I know a couple of reliable people through work. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. Mom pulled her arm away from Robert. A stranger watching our children, she snapped. And Barbara, I can't believe you're doing this. You're being selfish, just like your father. That was the last weekend I spent at home during college. I still called to check on the girls, but I stopped making the 3-hour drive back. Mom's guilt-tripping texts became a regular thing. Your sisters keep asking where you are, and I guess family doesn't mean much to you anymore. 4 years passed. I graduated with my business degree and landed a junior management position back in my hometown. The salary wasn't great, but it was enough to rent a small one-bedroom apartment. I thought maybe now, with some distance and independence, things with Mom would improve. Then the bomb dropped. Mom and Robert were getting divorced. No warning, no explanation, just Mom calling to tell me it was over. The girls, now 5 and 4, would stay with her, and Robert agreed to pay generous alimony. I should have seen what was coming next. It started with a casual request, Barbara, could you watch the girls this Saturday? I have an appointment. That appointment turned out to be a date. Soon, history began repeating itself in a way that made my stomach turn. Every weekend, without fail, Mom would show up at my apartment with Emma and Lucy in tow. I was putting in 60-hour weeks at work, taking every extra shift I could get, determined to climb the corporate ladder. My rare days off should have been for catching up on sleep, meeting friends for coffee, maybe even dating. Instead, I found myself building pillow forts and mediating sisterly squabbles while Mom was out living her life, as she put it. The worst part? I couldn't say no. Not when Emma would look up at me with those big brown eyes, asking if we could make cookies together. Not when Lucy would curl up in my lap with her favorite storybook. They were innocent in all this, just like I had been at their age. One sleepless night, after another weekend of babysitting, I found myself scrolling through Mom's social media. What I saw made my blood run cold. Her profile was filled with selfies at bars, restaurants, and yoga studios, but Emma and Lucy were nowhere to be found. It was like they didn't exist in her online world. I did find one photo of myself with her, taken at a cafe last summer. The caption read, "Such a lovely lunch date." Can you guess if this is my sister or daughter? Forever 21, good genes. The comments made me want to scream. OMG Sandra, definitely your sister. You look way too young to have a daughter that age. Girl, you look younger than her. What's your secret? Sisters for sure. You're aging backwards. I laughed, but it was hollow. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Mom was doing exactly what she'd done with me years ago, hiding her children to appear more attractive to potential partners. History wasn't just repeating itself, it was getting worse. Robert would call me regularly to check on the girls. He was still such a good father, always asking about their schoolwork, their friends, if they needed anything. How are they really doing, Barbara? He'd ask, concern evident in his voice. Sandra doesn't tell me much anymore. I hated lying to him. They're good, Robert. Mom's taking good care of them. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but Mom's warning echoed in my head, don't you dare tell Robert anything. He'll just try to take the girls away. Then came the day that changed everything. I stopped by Mom's house unannounced, arms loaded with bags of fresh fruit and treats for the girls. The moment I walked in, Emma and Lucy descended on the food like they hadn't eaten in days. Something felt off. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. The sight made me sick, a half-empty bottle of milk, some condiments, and not much else. The cabinets were equally bare. Mom, I screamed, storming into her bedroom where she was trying on new clothes. Why is there no food in this house? What are the girls eating? She lifted her chin, showing off her newly tightened neck. Don't be so dramatic, Barbara. I had to get some work done. The alimony only stretches so far, and I need to look young if I want to find a good man. The girls can survive on simple meals for a few weeks. I felt something snap inside me. Are you serious? You spent their food money on plastic surgery? It's an investment in our future, she replied calmly. Once I find a wealthy husband, the girls will have everything they need. I'm calling Robert right now, I threatened, pulling out my phone. Mom's face crumpled. Please, Barbara. I promise it won't happen again. I'll go grocery shopping tomorrow. Just don't tell Robert, please. I put my phone away, but my hands were shaking with rage. I mean it, Mom. If I ever find out you're neglecting them again, I'm telling Robert everything. No more secrets, no more lies. And you can kiss your alimony goodbye. Just over a month after the refrigerator incident, Mom showed up at my apartment looking pale and distressed. Her usual perfect makeup was missing, and her hair hung limp around her face. Barbara, honey, I need your help, she said, her voice weak. I have to go to the hospital for emergency surgery today. I need you to watch the girls for a few days. I felt my heart race. What's wrong? Are you okay? The doctors found something, she said vaguely, pressing a hand to her stomach. I need to go in right away. Please, I have no one else to turn to. What about a professional babysitter? I suggested. I can pay for one myself. Someone who does this full-time could. No, Mom cut me off sharply, then softened her voice. No strangers. I don't trust them with my babies. Okay, well, what about Robert? He's their father. Or Aunt Sarah? Mom shook her head. Robert's not answering his phone, and Sarah's out of town on business. Please, Barbara, I'm desperate. I looked at Emma and Lucy standing quietly beside her, clutching their little backpacks. What choice did I have? Let me call my boss, I sighed, already reaching for my phone. I had to use my unpaid personal days, but at least my job was secure. The first day was exhausting. The girls seemed more unruly than usual, probably picking up on the stress of the situation. Emma threw tantrums over everything, the wrong color cup, Lucy touching her toys, the sandwich cut in squares instead of triangles. Lucy followed her sister's lead, and soon I had 2 screaming children on my hands, more often than not. By the second day, I was running on fumes. Between cooking meals, doing laundry, cleaning up endless messes, and trying to keep them entertained, I barely had time to breathe. I'd just gotten them down for a nap when my phone rang. Hey, Barbara, It was my friend Kelly, who lived near Mom's house. Some party your mom's throwing. There's loud music, tons of cars parked outside, and they've got these gorgeous string lights everywhere. Must have taken hours to set up. Is it someone's birthday? That's impossible, I said, my voice shaking. My mom's in the hospital having surgery. The girls are here with me. You must be looking at the wrong house. Barbara, I'm literally standing at my window right now. I can see your mom's red front door from here. The music is so loud I can hear it inside my house. There's definitely a party happening. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I tried calling Mom 5 times, straight to voicemail every time. Something wasn't right, and I was going to figure out what. I pulled up Mom's social media page, nothing new there. Just the usual selfies and inspirational quotes about living your best life. But then I remembered her best friend Janet's obsession with posting everything live. I clicked over to Janet's page, and there it was, a live stream. Oh my God, you guys, Janet's voice blared through my speakers. I am so excited to be here celebrating my bestie's engagement. Look at this gorgeous party she put together. The camera panned around my mother's living room, now transformed with twinkling lights and flowers. Dozens of people were mingling, champagne glasses in hand. My stomach lurched when I saw Mom in the background, radiant in a new red dress, nothing like the sick woman who'd shown up at my door. I can't believe this, I whispered to myself. The girls were still playing quietly in the next room. I needed to act fast. I called Aunt Sarah first. Sarah, Mom said you were out of town on business. What? No, I'm home. Why? I quickly explained the situation. Can you please come watch the girls for a few hours? I need to deal with something. Of course, honey. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Your mother's gone too far this time. Next, I called Robert. He picked up on the first ring. Barbara, is everything okay? Not answering your phone, huh? I said bitterly. That's what Mom told me when I suggested calling you about watching the girls. What are you talking about? Sandra hasn't called me in weeks. I took a deep breath and told him everything, the supposed emergency surgery, the girls staying with me, and what I'd just discovered on the live stream. She's throwing an engagement party? His voice was dangerously quiet. I'm picking you up in 10 minutes. Sarah's watching the girls? Yes, she's on her way. Good. It's time we had a family meeting. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. I paced the floor, alternating between rage and disbelief. When Robert's car pulled up, I was already waiting outside. The drive to Mom's house was tense. Robert's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I knew something wasn't right, he kept saying. The way she's been acting with the girls lately. I should have pushed harder. We could hear the music from halfway down the block. Cars lined both sides of the street, and light spilled from every window of the house. Robert parked right in the driveway, blocking in several other cars. Through the front window, we could see everything. Mom was in the center of the room, wrapped in the arms of a man I'd never seen before. He looked young, much younger than her. As we watched, she pulled him into a passionate kiss, while her friends cheered and raised their glasses. To Sandra and Mark, someone shouted. May you have the fairy tale ending you deserve. If they only knew what that fairy tale was costing her children. Robert and I walked straight into the house without knocking. Mom stood frozen in the middle of the room, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor. Barbara? Robert? Her face went from flushed to pale in seconds. What are you doing here? Funny, I said, my voice carrying across the now quieting room. I was about to ask you the same thing. Shouldn't you be in the hospital having emergency surgery? The young man beside her, Mark, I presumed, looked confused. Surgery? Sandy, what's she talking about? Oh, you haven't met? I stepped forward. I'm Barbara, her daughter. The one she apparently didn't want to invite to her engagement party. Mark's face lit up, completely misreading the situation. Your daughter? Sandy, why didn't you invite her to our party? This is wonderful. He extended his hand warmly. I've been so excited to learn more about your life. Oh, then you're going to love this, I said, pulling out my phone. I pulled up a recent photo of Mom with Emma and Lucy at the park, one of the rare ones she hadn't deleted. Here are your future stepdaughters. Emma's 5, and Lucy's 4. The color drained from Mark's face. He turned to my mother. You have 2 more children? Small children? Mom stepped forward, reaching for his arm. Mark, darling, I can explain. Explain what? His voice cracked. That you hid 2 small children from me? After I specifically told you I'm not ready for kids. I'm 28, Sandra. I told you I wanted to travel, build my career first. They're hardly ever around, Mom pleaded. Their father takes them most of the time. Actually, Robert cut in, his voice ice cold, that's not true. Barbara's been watching them every weekend while you go dating. And apparently now you're dumping them on her with fake medical emergencies so you can throw engagement parties. The guests were starting to edge toward the door, sensing the impending explosion. Mark looked like he'd been slapped. This is insane, he shook his head. A complete hoax. He backed away from Mom. The wedding's off, Sandra. I can't even look at you right now. Within minutes, the house had cleared out. Mom stood in the middle of her decorated living room, mascara running down her face. How could you? She screamed at me. You've ruined everything. My one chance at happiness. Happiness? Robert's voice boomed. What about our daughter's happiness? The daughters you've been neglecting while you chase men? Barbara told me about the empty fridge, Sandra. About the plastic surgery. First thing tomorrow, I'm calling my lawyer. I'm filing for full custody. Mom's face contorted. You can't. I can and I will. You won't have to hide them anymore, Sandra. They'll live with me full time. And you can forget about the alimony, you've made it very clear how you're spending it, and it's not on our children. The drive back to my apartment was silent. When we arrived, Emma and Lucy ran to their father, throwing their arms around his legs. Daddy, are we having a sleepover at your house? Robert knelt down, hugging them close. More than a sleepover, sweethearts. You're going to come live with Daddy now. The girls cheered, and my heart broke a little. They didn't even ask about their mother. The aftermath of the engagement party explosion played out exactly as I should have expected. Mom took to social media like a warrior going to battle. Her posts started appearing everywhere. My own daughter betrayed me out of jealousy. She couldn't stand to see her mother happy and in love. Toxic daughter, betrayal. I couldn't stay silent. Under each post, I left simple, factual comments. You told me you were having emergency surgery while throwing an engagement party. You spent your children's food money on plastic surgery. You left your daughters with me every weekend while dating. The family started taking sides. But unlike what Mom expected, most of them stood with me. Aunt Sarah was the first to speak up. Sandra, we've watched you neglect your children for years. Barbara was protecting her sisters. Then came the trial. I'll never forget sitting in that cold courtroom, watching Mom try to maintain her usual perfect facade while Robert's lawyer methodically destroyed it. The financial records were damning, page after page of expenses laid bare on the projector screen. $5,000, Botox and fillers. $8,000, breast augmentation. $3,000, laser treatments. $2,500, personal trainer. $1,800, designer clothing. And then, in stark contrast, $200, children's clothing, 3 months. $150, school supplies. $300, groceries, monthly average. When it was my turn to testify, Mom wouldn't look at me. I told the court everything, the empty fridge, the constant babysitting under false pretenses, the way she hid the girls from potential boyfriends. The judge's decision was swift and unequivocal. Mom was stripped of her parental rights. She stormed out of the courtroom without looking back. That was 6 months ago. Mom doesn't speak to me anymore. I'm a traitor now. Sometimes she still posts about me, about what a terrible daughter I am, how I destroyed her life. I've stopped reading them. Through the grapevine, I hear she's living with her friend Janet now. Robert took possession of the house he'd been paying for, and Mom had to move out. It's probably easier for her now, I told Robert recently, while watching Emma and Lucy play in his backyard. She doesn't have to hide any children anymore. He squeezed my shoulder. Their loss is our gain. And he's right. The girls are thriving with Robert. They're in therapy, dealing with their abandonment issues, but they're happy. Their rooms are filled with artwork and toys. The fridge is always stocked. They're in dance classes and soccer teams, and their father never misses a recital or a game. I go over for dinner twice a week now, and we actually get to enjoy our time together. Last night, Emma showed me her science project while Lucy practiced reading out loud. No pressure, no guilt, no manipulation, just family being family. Sometimes I wonder if Mom will ever realize what she gave up in her endless pursuit of youth and romance. But that's not my problem anymore. My job now is to be the big sister these girls deserve, to help them grow into strong women who know their worth isn't measured by their appearance or relationship status. As for me, I'm finally living my own life. I got that promotion at work. I'm dating someone who makes me laugh. And every time I see my sisters' faces light up when I visit, I know I made the right choice.